So here's a question to kick things off. What if that background you thought was boxing you in?
Yeah.
What if it's actually your unexpected advantage? And what if redefining success isn't about chasing some, traditional path, but building something new, something that actually gives you energy?
That is exactly the puzzle we're digging into today. We're pulling insights from some really interesting sources, specifically excerpts from IPL24.txt,
Okay.
and these highlight takeaways from a podcast called Wish I Knew That. It focuses on people, quite a few with legal training actually, who've made these really surprising career pivots.
The editor's notes in these sources, they really jumped out at me.
Roshni's perspective.
Exactly. She talks about lawyers. Well, she grew up with engineers, and she saw lawyers as being from, like, Jupiter
Yeah.
compared to the engineers' Earth.
Yeah, I saw that. Like a place she respected, but totally foreign.
Right. And it sets up this idea of law as this maybe separate world. She even gives family examples, like her cousin still trying to pass the final bar exam after 5 years.
Kind of in orbit, as she put it. And the uncle getting his law degree at 60 after other things didn't work out.
Yeah, and her dad wanting the lawyer title for some kind of, quote, special power.
That idea of law giving special power or status is pretty common, isn't it?
It really is. But these stories we're looking at, they seem to push back on that, or at least show a different kind of power.
Definitely. So our mission today is to dive into these sources, pull out the key lessons, the surprising bits, the aha moments, all about reinventing your career, making those big shifts, and finding work that actually, well, fuels you.
And this deep dive, it's really for you listening. Maybe you have a legal background, maybe you just feel stuck professionally.
Or you're a student wondering about options, or honestly just curious about nonlinear careers and what it really takes to be a founder. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. The podcast featured in the sources Wish I Knew That.
Yeah.
It's hosted by Preeti Maheshwari.
Yeah.
And she herself pivoted, right? Law into legal tech.
Exactly. And the sources point out the show is picked because it doesn't paint success as some clean, easy formula. It shows it as messy, winding, deeply personal, more real.
Showing the reality, not just the highlight reel.
That's the idea. It's about the human side of changing careers. And the sources give us three pretty distinct stories that capture this idea of using your background as a launchpad, not, a cage.
All right, first up is Ruchi. The source describes her as going from corporate law to being a 2X founder and full-time mom.
Yeah, that title alone tells you it wasn't the usual path.
Definitely not.
And she apparently made it clear her moves weren't about climbing some ladder someone else built. It was about curiosity.
Just following her curiosity, where did that lead?
Well, first to co-founding a fintech unicorn, ACCO.
Whoa, hold on. Fintech unicorn. Maybe break that down quickly.
Oh, right. Good point.
Yeah.
Basically, a financial technology startup that hits a valuation over $1 billion. So, yeah, big leap from corporate law.
Understatement. And then she started a fashion label. Heirloom Lifestyle, brand name Jolene.
Two totally different fields. And the sources share these incredible details, like launching ACKO literally the day her twins were born.
Wow. Talk about intense multitasking.
Seriously. And the fashion line, Jolene, it wasn't just like a random idea. She started it to solve actual problems women face with clothing fit and function.
So driven by real needs. What was her motivation overall, according to the source?
It sounds like it wasn't about chasing external approval, but finding work that genuinely energized her. Which brings us to the key insight, the growth nugget they pulled out.
Okay, what's the nugget?
Reinvention kicks off when you stop trying to fit into someone else's definition of success and you start building your own definition, one that actually gives you energy.
Building one that energizes you. Sounds simple, but I imagine it's tough when everyone's pushing, traditional success metrics.
It must be. But it seems Richie really prioritized that internal drive, that spark. And look, it led to massive external success too, even if the path seemed unconventional.
Okay, interesting. Let's shift to the second story. This one's from Aditi. Insights on networking. Coming from her experience as a founder, a VC, that's venture capitalist.
And a journalist, too. Diverse background. And her view, it really challenges the standard networking advice we always hear.
What's her take?
She basically throws out the whole idea of strategic or transactional networking. Meeting people just because you think they might be useful later, or having some hidden agenda.
Which is kind of the standard playbook, right? Go to events, swap cards, follow up with a specific ask in mind.
Pretty much. Aditi argues for building your circle based on actual trust. Real connections first, not just potential utility down the road.
So authenticity over strategy.
Seems like it. Her core belief, which I found really compelling, is that the energy you bring, your values, they matter way more than some polished pitch. Your network, she says, ends up reflecting who you are, your character.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Makes networking sound less transactional.
Definitely. So the growth nugget here isn't just about the number of people you know.
Which is how most people think about it.
Exactly. The insight is the real depth of your network isn't just who you know, but who knows you. And importantly, what can they genuinely say about your character? How do you show up?
So that flips it? Quality of reputation over quantity of contacts.
Precisely. Seems much more meaningful and probably more sustainable too.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Finally, let's talk about Anand. He pivoted from law into alcobev, alcoholic beverages.
That's right. He started a mead company, honey wine.
Mead. Okay. And his story.
This one, according to the sources, really grounds you in the nitty-gritty reality of entrepreneurship. Forget the glamour shots. This is about the grit.
Uh-oh. What kind of grit are we talking?
Well, the sources mention specific stuff, like
Right.
dealing with messy batches of mead that just didn't work out.
Oh, man. The unglamorous side of experimenting.
Totally. And navigating crazy complex state-by-state alcohol regulations, the grind of bootstrapping.
Bootstrapping meaning funding it himself, mostly. No big investors at the start?
Yeah, largely self-funded or using early revenues. Plus, tons of late nights just trying to figure out the fermentation, get the recipe right.
Sounds like constant problem solving. Getting your hands dirty, literally.
It really does. And the sources contrast this with that polished startup image we often see. Anand's story shows it's often less about the fancy launch party
Yep.
and way more about just pushing through the messy middle.
Doing the actual unsexy work.
Exactly. And the growth nugget from his experience really nails this. It's about stopping the wait.
Waiting for what?
Waiting to feel totally ready. Waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect market conditions, the perfect funding. He suggests you just have to start. Start experimenting, start doing.
And learn as you go.
That's the core of it. The journey itself, the trying and failing and adjusting, teaches you things that no business plan, no textbook ever could.
Stop waiting to be ready and just start experimenting.
God,
It
yeah.
feels both liberating and kind of terrifying.
It definitely requires a bit of a leap and resilience for when things inevitably get messy, like those mead batches. Learning on the fly.
Okay, so let's pull back and look at these three stories together. Ruchi finding energy, Aditi building trust, and on embracing the mess. They all came from law, but ended up in such different places. What's the common thread?
Well, a few things jump out. They all clearly followed their curiosity, didn't they? Even when it led off the beaten path.
Right, not just sticking to the expected next step.
And they each defined success on their own terms. It wasn't about external validation, it seems, but something more internal.
Like Ruchi's focus on energy,
Mm.
or Anand's commitment to just building the thing.
Exactly. And maybe most importantly, they learned by doing. They jumped in, experimented, figured it out as they went, rather than waiting for, permission or the perfect moment.
Authenticity seems key too, and resilience, definitely. It really makes you think that a structured background like law doesn't have to limit you.
Not at all. It gives you a specific way of thinking, problem-solving skills. Maybe that special power the editor's dad talked about. But it's a launch pad, not a destination. You can use those skills in completely new ways.
So, for you listening right now, the big takeaway from these sources seems to be that reimagining your career. It's possible.
It's definitely possible. It's often messy, not a straight line, and yeah, it takes grit. But it seems to start with defining success for yourself based on what fuels you, your curiosity, your energy.
The core message feels like
Yeah.
your degree, your background, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just a starting point.
It equips you, absolutely. But it doesn't lock you in. You decide where you launch from there, what you want to build.
So think about your own background. Forget the limitations for a second. What unique perspective, what kind of special power does it give you? How could you maybe use that for a path you find energizing?
And maybe take a page from Ruchi, Aditi, and Anand. Their willingness to leap, to trust, to just start experimenting. What's one small thing you could start experimenting with today?
Without waiting to feel totally ready.
Exactly. What little test could you run? What might that messy, imperfect action teach you that just thinking about it or planning it forever never will? Something to consider.